I've been reading Greg Locke's book on my Telltale Reads YouTube channel recently, and I came to a part where he started calling the Democrats Nazis and saying he and his church need to stand up and do something about it because people didn't do anything to stop him in 1930s Germany, which is obviously disturbing for a variety of reasons, but I decided to really break this down and take a critical look at whether or not it's true. Are the Democrats really the equivalent of the Nazi Party? Let's take a look. When discussing speaking out, I often hear people say things like, well, you know, if I was alive back in the days of Nazi Germany, I believe I would have said something. I believe I would have made a phone call. I believe I would have turned them in. I would have stood up to it. I would have stood out. I would have... ... What would you have done? Before you answer, let me tell you the truth. Whatever you think you would have been doing then is exactly what you aren't doing right now. In reality, Greg Locke and his congregants are morally and politically aligned with Nazis in Nazi Germany, more morally and politically aligned with them than with the people on the other side of the fence in Germany at the time, like by far. Now, there is a line that Hitler crossed eventually. Hitler was moving Jews into ghettos and mistreating them and ostracizing them from the rest of society for a long time leading up to what happened. He found reasons for society to hate the Jewish people, and there came a time when the Jewish people were really sick of what was happening, being mistreated and everything, and one person assassinated a German dignitary or ambassador of some sort from another country. I forget where exactly or who it was, but Hitler used that attack, that assassination, as a pretext to start what he called the Jew hunt. He started saying, anybody that you find outside of these areas, you need to take them out. And eventually it turned into find them and take them out. Find them and kill them. That just plain and simple. That was when the violence really fully started officially. And it came to the point where he realized that no matter how much these people hate Jews or whoever else, hate black people in the case of America, or gay people, or whoever it happens to be, no matter how much they hate them, humans are not supposed to kill other humans. It deeply affects our psychology negatively. And even people that really had a problem with the Jewish community and believed that they were part of this big cabal that was running the big banks and all that stuff, which is the pretext that Hitler used to make people hate the Jews. Blame them for all of their problems, right? No matter how much you hate them, you're not supposed to kill another human. It's against our psychology. It's against who we are as human beings. And it was giving people PTSD who were doing this. Despite the fact that they agreed with what they were doing, their brains could not handle what they were doing. So Hitler came up with this plan to basically pull people out and stop them from doing what they called the Jew hunt and have them just arrest Jewish people from then on. Instead of doing the hard work themselves, they had them arrest the people and send them to a central area where they were taking them out en masse. That's when the Holocaust started in full. Now, we can look at timelines of events along the way, right? Like 1930s, early 30s, Hitler came to power, and all through that time he was demonizing the Jewish people, blaming them for all of the problems, shuttling them to the ghettos, and ordering them not to leave, and attacking them, and, you know, all of it. Hitler was saying the exact same things about the Jews that Donald Trump and Greg Locke and all of these other far-right extremist pastors and figures say about immigrants, about the black community, about the gay community. Let me just give you one simple, straightforward example. This is Tommy McMurtry. He's a member of the NIFB, the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church, started by Stephen Anderson, Pastor Stephen Anderson. I've talked about him a few times. This guy is a pastor of one of the NIFB churches. Greg Locke agrees with this position, and I have some videos to back that up, that Greg Locke agrees with this position. I can only play certain ones on YouTube. I can't play all of it because it's too on the nose and bad. But listen to what Tommy says here.
We know they have always been around. We've read the book of Genesis. Okay. Nobody's saying they're never around, but there was a time when society, when our country saw them for what they were, and they put them in their place 6 feet under. And unfortunately, we have forgotten that in our country.
I sit here every day of my life, listening to Greg Locke and Tommy McMurtry, Stephen Anderson, Kent Hovind, Kenneth Copeland, Donald Trump, all of these other political and religious figures saying things like that every single day. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, Greg Locke and his people, his congregants, his friends, his fellow pastors are on the exact same timeline, on the exact same side as Nazi Germany was in the 1930s. Have we reached the Jew hunt phase? No. No, we haven't reached that stage yet. But we are moving along that timeline right now. Now, I don't care if you don't like that comparison, if you feel like it's unfair, or whatever else. I don't care. That's what it is. You have no idea how many books I have read about denazification and the timeline of events and how people arrived at these conclusions that they did psychologically and the psychological damage that it did to everybody involved. You have no idea how many books I've read about this. I'm saying, without a shadow of a doubt, Greg Locke would be on the side of the Nazis in 1930s Germany. So let's continue reading the book here, where Greg Locke is telling us that he would have been on the other side of the battle. Whatever you think you would have been doing then is exactly what you aren't doing right now. Or we can put it this way: if you aren't doing it now, you wouldn't have done it then. It's easy to talk about what we would have done a long time ago in a situation we'll never have to face. We are facing it right now. We are actually facing it right now. The LGBT community and many other minority groups are being treated the same way the Jews were being treated in 1930s Germany, early 30s Germany. Early to mid-30s. I'd say we're in 1935 on the timeline right now. Matter of fact, you know what? Just to really drive this point home, let me see if I can find something specific here. We can't watch this whole thing, but let me just show you this video from, when is this from? 1947 to, yeah, this is a series of educational films from 1942 to 1947, and it was an attempt to prevent Americans from falling for what the Germans fell for in Nazi Germany. It's intended to prevent Americans from going down the Nazi Germany route. Watch this.
They can live together and work together and build America together because they're free. Free to vote, to say what they pleased, go to their own churches, to pick their own jobs. Yeah, Mike's got something, all right. He's got America. But there are guys who stay up nights figuring out how to take that away from him.
I want to give you the truth, folks. The truth about America. I know you've got a lot of questions. You want to know why you're not getting the breaks you deserve. Well, I'm not a politician, but I've made it my business to study these things, and I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American, And some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see people with foreign accents making all the money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
Notice how they're segregating people into real Americans and fake Americans, people who deserve a good life and people who don't. This is the exact thing that happened in Nazi Germany, and that is the exact reason why this film was made, to point out that distinction, to make people realize what's happening is wrong and leads to something truly deeply devastating to society. That's why they're making that comparison. That's why they're pointing it out in the first place.
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
He says, I've heard this kind of talk before, never expected to hear it here in America.
This fella seems to know what he's talking about.
Yes, he knows all right.
What's the answer? What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church. Now, friends, these books are free. Paid for by real Americans who want others to know the truth.
Excuse me, young man, but are you actually going to read that stuff?
Sure, why not? You heard what he said, didn't you?
Yes, I heard. But do you believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know, makes pretty good sense to me.
I'm speaking to you as an American. And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without. Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons. You know these people.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason. Hey, that fella's talking about me.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us.
You remember the speech Donald Trump gave at the very beginning of his campaign, 2016? They're not sending their best. What was it he said? They're bringing crime, they're so on and so forth. Does that sound familiar?
Thank you.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about, well, about those other people.
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people, all of us.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I am an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have heard today. But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics. But unfortunately, it was not so.
Well, they were crazy people. They were stupid fanatics. That is so. It's just they captured the psyche of everybody around them. They sucked them into an ideology and made that ideology appealing to others by demonizing their enemies, by demonizing the people that they hate. Is this sounding familiar?
They knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us, made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk.
We aren't born with prejudices. They're made by somebody who wants something. That's interesting, right? We're born with a tendency to favor the tribe that we're from, but bigotry and hatred and prejudice comes from people who want to teach it.
Somebody is going to get something out of it, and it isn't going to be you. This is not classroom theory. I saw it happen. I saw it first in Berlin in 1932.
1932 was the start of the whole ugly mess. By 1935, I believe they'd already shuttled Jews into ghettos and demonized them terribly. And there was a plague, typhoid? Maybe it was typhoid that was being passed around the ghettos in Germany at the time. And they used that as a pretext to basically ban Jews from exiting the ghettos at all. And if they did exit the ghettos, the areas that they had cordoned off, then they would be killed.
5 young men that I knew were standing in the crowd listening to the Nazi speaker. Eric was a Catholic. Anton, a student of mine, was a Jew. Heinrich owned a small hardware store. Karl was a farmer. And Hans was an unemployed metal worker.
To all true Aryan Germans, I say it is time you inherited the nation which rightfully belongs to you. To you alone belongs the glorious destiny of the greater Germany. The Nazi Party will provide land for the farmer, work for the worker, and profits for the small businessman.
The Nazi Party was tiny. It was a tiny little itty-bitty party that nobody paid attention to, like the America First Party or whatever. It was just a little thing that nobody listened to, and they thought they were nutbags. And they were nutbags. But they won political power, one victory after another, until they got to a point where they had a platform big enough that they could broadcast their message far and wide to a disproportionate number of people. And suddenly everybody is listening. Everybody knows about the message. And the message is, these people are your enemies. These people are the reason why you're suffering. These people are the reason why you don't have everything that you ever wanted, a mansion and a nice car and all that other stuff. That was their message. Divide and conquer. And it worked in Nazi Germany. It worked. They succeeded.
Who is getting these things now? The Jew. The Jew who has stolen our nation and our birthright. Who makes all the money and takes all our jobs? The Jew! He must be shunned. He must be ostracized. He must be eliminated. And the Catholics. We don't want our great nation run by a foreign church. We Germans will know what to do with these people when the time comes. They and their faith must be destroyed. Then there are the Freemasons. In Germany, we have no place for secret societies. There will be only one society, and that is the Nazi Party. There will be no secrecy about that in the new greater Germany.
One by one, he attacked each minority and he split them off one from the other. These men were all fellow Germans when they came here today. Now they were split into rival groups, suspicious of each other, hating each other. They were being swindled, all of them. But the man who was really being fooled was Hans. He was pure German, according to Nazi standards. To him they promised everything, and he fell for it.
You who are true Aryan Germans will share the glorious destiny of our fatherland. You are the pure-blooded, the master race. It is your divine right to rule, and the Nazi Party stands ready to put you into power. It is for you to command all Germany, and someday the entire world.
You see how it can be appealing to be told that you are the best of the best, and you deserve this thing or that. You deserve to be rich. And the fact that you're not is the fault of this group over here. And if we just deal with this group, if we just stop this from happening, you will be rich. We will make sure of it. You see how that can be appealing? I mean, naturally, it's probably not appealing to the type of people who watch my channel because you recognize it for what it is, a grift. But to any other person out there who is unaware of history or unaware of how this works, you can see why this would rope people in and be interesting to them, right?
That's how Hans became a Superman. They gave him a uniform and they pumped up his ego. He wasn't just a little fellow out of work anymore. He was a member of the master race. His wife couldn't quite understand. Even though he was a Superman, there wasn't any food in the house. Stupid woman. Didn't she realize that the Nazis were going to make jobs for everybody? There would be plenty of food and clothing and a new house. Everything they wanted. The glorious future of Germany was to be theirs. And their children would someday rule the world. But his wife, silly woman, still wondered where the next meal was coming from. Hans didn't like that kind of talk. It was dangerous. For that kind of talk, people should be put in jail. Hans had swallowed the bait all right. And these were the men who baited the hook. Why?
Is Joseph Goebbels in the background, I believe. That was Hitler's propaganda minister, and he came up with a bunch of propaganda techniques, like the big lie, for example, stuff like that.
So that Hans could come to power? Of course not. So they could come to power. They would merely use Hans to help them get there. He would do the dirty work for them.
After Hitler died, or after he killed himself, Joseph Goebbels, I believe, was chancellor of Germany for a single day, and then he killed himself the exact same way Hitler did.
Hans and thousands of others like him, all playing a sucker's game. They gambled with other people's liberty, and of course they lost their own. A nation of suckers. Hitler needed these people. There was lots of work to be done. There were trade unions to be smashed, because unions were organized and might offer resistance. There were many political parties in Germany. These the Nazis destroyed. They were determined to smash every organization where people might band together and resist them. There were Jews to be beaten and killed. The Jews were not powerful, but they were a convenient excuse for all the nation's ills. And besides, a Nazi party member could not take over this man's store.
And how did they manage to blame Jews when the Jews were obviously not in any sort of political power position in the country? They claimed that international Jews ran international banks and stuff like that. They owned a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, these Jews are lowly and live in the ghettos and have no political power, but their cousins and their uncles and their aunts and stuff who they listen to, they control all the big banks, and they are the heart of all of the problems of the country. That's how they framed it, and that's how they managed to blame this one minority group, despite the fact that they had absolutely no political power of any sort and were very obviously being persecuted terribly. They were the cabal from that time. Yeah, they were. They were absolutely the cabal, the deep state. They were the Illuminati at the time, the Jews were. And honestly still are. But I think the Illuminati, the cabal, or the deep state has focused less on Jewish ancestry and more on, I mean, in America at least, and more on like Democrats and the LGBT community and stuff. Now it's focused more on the political entities that the modern day Republican Party hates, which does include Jews. It's just they focus on Jews less now than they did back then, obviously. People have been doing this for a long time. This is a method that's existed since the dawn of time. Not only has this method existed since the dawn of time, but we can watch it play out in real time today, right now, among Greg Locke and his fans, his congregants, his friends, his fellow pastors. He uses this exact strategy that we just watched on this 1942 video.
I'm to the place right now, if you vote Democrat, I don't even want you around this church. You can get out. You can get out, you demon. You can get out, you baby butchering election thief.
Notice he's accusing the Democrats of various different things, being demons, being election thieves.
You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. I don't care how mad that makes you. You get pissed off as you want to. You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. They are God-denying demons that butcher babies and hate this nation.
Or how about this one right here? This is another one he put out not too long ago. This one is from mid-April 2022.
We have to stop compromising to the propaganda. So I say this and we volley back. One of the things we did to push back against the nonsense is not only put up the sign, but we told our folks, we so believe.
Put up the sign, no masks allowed on this church campus.
So believe in our First Amendment right to gather under this tent and to worship Jesus Christ, that if you show up with your propaganda machine and you try to impede on our First Amendment right, I said our boys will meet you at the door of this tent with our Second Amendment right, because we're not playing your Democrat games. This is a church, and we're going to stand.
So, the point is, Greg Locke is on the side that the Nazis were on. The parallels are honestly disturbing. What's even more disturbing is the fact that these people don't seem to recognize that they're the embodiment of the thing they despise. That's why we have to talk about it. That's why we have to point it out at every opportunity. Do not let them get away with this. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check me out on Teespring. I sell all kinds of shirts and stickers and stuff on there. Or you can check out my other YouTube channels. As I said earlier, this video is an excerpt from my Telltale Reads YouTube channel, where I'm going through Greg Locke's book. Each episode stands independently of the rest. If there's missing context from the previous chapters, I explain it. I also have my Fireside Chat channel, where I talk about the intersection between religion and politics, and I have my Unfiltered channel, where I do long-form breakdowns of sermons from Greg Locke, Trump rallies, Jehovah's Witness conventions, and other stuff like that. So give it a watch if it sounds interesting. All links are in the description, as always. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.